Gollum Obsessed Stalker is a 1/1 halfling horror for 1 generic and 1 black. It has Skulk, meaning it can't be blocked by creatures with greater power. At the beginning of your end step, each opponent dealt combat damage this game by a creature named Gollum Obsessed Stalker loses life equal to the amount of life you gained this turn. Gollum presents a unique approach to deck building. This is a commander deck that wants its commander to connect with an opponent, but we don't really need a lot of damage to come from those attacks. In fact, we can get away with just attacking each opponent successfully once. The relevant text is in that end step trigger, where each opponent that Gollum has connected with throughout the game loses life equal to that specific turn's life gain quantity. So instead of focusing our efforts on our commander, we're actually going to utilize cards that are meant to gain us instances of life here and there, with the goal being to amass enough life gain that the end step trigger burns off a lot of the remaining life of each opponent. To begin, we're going to look at the cards in the deck that will gain us life. Basilicus Creature is a 1/2 bat for 1 and 1 black. It has Flying and Extort. Extort lets us pay 1 black mana whenever we cast a spell to ping each opponent for 1 life, and then we gain the life lost this way. This seems innocuous, but the few small bits of life we gain through the various cards will accumulate at the Gollum end step trigger, so even as few as 3 Extort triggers in a 4-player game will give us 9 total life gained, giving Gollum 9 additional life taken from each player he's connected with. This creature being a 2-drop means this is an easy early game spell to cast. Clackbridge Troll is a powerful 8/8 for 3 and 2 black with Trample and Haste. When it enters the battlefield, target opponent creates 3 0/1 white goat tokens. At the beginning of combat on your turn, any opponent may sacrifice a creature. If a player does, we tap the troll, gain 3 life, and draw a card. This is really a damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of situation. The troll has 8 power, which is a threat just on its own, given the Trample and Haste. We can threaten life totals with just that alone. But an opponent can tap down our troll to protect the table from an attack, though in doing so, we gain 3 life that Gollum can later use to bolt the table that he's hit. And then we'll draw a card. It's a tough decision to make, and it's one that we'll benefit from either way. Creeping Bloodsucker is a 1/2 for 1 and 1 black. At the beginning of your upkeep, it deals 1 damage to each opponent, and then we gain the life equal to the amount lost this way. This is a great way to passively gain life for Gollum's ability, as each turn we're going to gain 3 life. This also being a 2-drop means it'll come out early, and even if we don't quite yet have the setup to get Gollum's engine rolling, it'll be some nice padding for our life total. Cryptghast has double utility in this deck. It's a 2/2 for 3 and 1 black with Extort. It also lets us get an additional black mana to our mana pool whenever we tap a swamp for mana. This acts as both mana ramp and life gain, as we can cast a few spells to get multiple Extort triggers in one turn, giving us a healthier life quotient to utilize later on. Grey Merchant of Asphodel is a 2/4 zombie for 3 generic and 2 black. When it enters the battlefield, each opponent loses X life, where X is our devotion to black. We gain life equal to the amount of life lost this way. This is one of our best cards, as the more black pips we have in play, the greater the swings in life. We also run a card called Saw in Half, an instant that costs 2 and 1 black. Saw in Half will destroy target creature, which we can use on our Grey Merchant. We then create 2 tokens that are copies of the Grey Merchant, except its power and toughness are both halved. The part we care about is having 2 additional triggers of the Grey Merchant's enter the battlefield trigger, which can actually win us the game on the spot. This can be great to get out late game should Gollum have all 3 opponents live for his burn effect to go off, and we just need a little more boost in life gain to really close out the game. This is actually one of the main win conditions in my competitive Keurig deck, making Grey Merchant perhaps the best win con for a mono black deck like this one. Kokusho, the Evening Star, is 4 generic and 2 black for a 5/5 Dragon Spirit with Flying. Whenever Kokusho dies, each opponent loses 5 life, and then we gain life equal to the amount lost this way. These are the cards that we really want to hold up until we are live on all 3 opponents with Gollum, as this could net us a total of 15 life gained, which combined with the Kokusho's 5 loss ability will give us a total of 20 damage between Gollum and it through the end of turn ability. Nighthawk Scavenger costs 1 and 2 black for a Vampire Rogue with Flying, Death Touch, and Lifelink. It has 3 base toughness, and its power is equal to 1 plus the number of card types among cards in your opponent's graveyards. This refers to types such as creature, instant, sorcery, planeswalker, enchantment, artifact, battle, and land. This is an excellent offensive creature, as it having Death Touch and Flying will make it both difficult and unwise to block, and the lifelink will gain us a swing in life regardless of if it's blocked or not. Noxious Gearhulk is a 5/4 for 4 and 2 black for an artifact creature construct with Menace. When it enters the battlefield, we may destroy another target creature, and if a creature is destroyed this way, we gain life equal to its toughness. This acts as both removal and life gain, and we obviously would want to target whatever the biggest threat on the board is to get the biggest swing in life. Sangromancer is a 3/3 vampire shaman for 2 and 2 black. It has flying. Whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, or whenever an opponent discards a card, for each action that meets any of these two conditionals, we will gain 3 life. This is an excellent way to gain passive life without having too much effort. Shard of the Nightbringer is an 8/8 Catan for 5 and 3 black. It has flying. Whenever Shard of the Nightbringer enters the battlefield, if you've cast it from your hand, target opponent loses half their life, rounded up. You gain life equal to the amount lost this way. If Gollum has connected to the opponent that we're targeting with this effect, that player will lose the game at the end step trigger. This can also devastate the other players at the table, as Gollum will take out that much life from each of them should they have been connected. Thrall Parasite is a 1/1 throw for just 1 black mana. It has Extort. We can also tap it, pay 2 life to remove a counter from target non-land permanent. This is great as an early game life gain engine, and it can be used against cards like Planeswalkers, Sagas, Creatures to remove problematic counters and keep them off their game plans. Do note that this cannot affect any emblems that are in play. Twilight Prophet is a 2/4 vampire cleric for 2 and 2 black. It has flying and ascend. Ascend gives us the city's blessing should we control 10 permanents at any time while this is in play. At the beginning of our upkeep, if we have the city's blessing, we reveal the top card of our library and add it to our hand. Each opponent loses X life, and we gain X life, where X is the mana value of the card revealed. This is both card draw and part of our life gain engine. It's also bulky enough that this will survive most situations. Vito, Thorn of the Dusk Rose, costs 2 and 1 black for a 1/3 vampire cleric. Whenever we gain life, target opponent loses that much life. We can also pay 3 and 2 black to give our creatures lifelink until the end of turn. This can be a great way to wrap up games, giving our creatures lifelink, giving us a huge swing in life, and then going to the end step where Gollum's ability will clean up the rest of the table. On to non-creature spells, we have Blood Tithe, a pretty simple sorcery that costs 3 and 1 black. Each opponent loses 3 life, and then we gain life equal to the amount lost this way. This is a pretty straightforward spell, though I recommend holding it up until we've gained enough life this turn that the additional 9 life this gives us converts into lethal burn damage by Gollum. Essence Pulse is a bit tricky, but I still do run it. It costs 3 and a black for a sorcery that gains us 2 life. Creatures in play then get -X until the end of turn, where X is the amount of life we've gained total this turn. I would say to cast this before we cast Gollum, as his 1 toughness would send him to the graveyard before the end step off of this, and we would miss the ability to get his trigger. Otherwise, we would just need to recast him from the command zone. Exsanguinate is basically another win con in this deck. It costs X and 2 black for a sorcery that causes each opponent to lose X life, and then we gain the amount of life lost this way. The math for this card can be done a lot easier on the mana base because of Gollum's ability. If Gollum has all 3 opponents life for his ability, we could do the math backwards from the highest life total to see how much life we'd have to invest in the X cost for Gollum's ability to combine that total and finish off the table. Crypt Incursion is 2 and a black for an instant. It exiles all creature cards from target player's graveyard, and then we gain 3 life for each card exiled this way. It's another hefty life gain card, and graveyard hate to boot. Save this for the player who might be playing some reanimation strategies. Aetherflux Reservoir is another win con in this deck. This 4 mana artifact has a trigger where wherever we cast a spell, we gain 1 life for each spell we've cast that turn. This does take into consideration any spells cast before it enters the battlefield, so we can begin gaining more life if we've already cast a spell or 2 prior. We can also pay 50 life to deal 50 damage to a target creature or player. This can be used at a high enough life totals to simply knock a player out of the game. Alhemerit's Archive is a 5 mana artifact that doubles our life gain whenever we gain life, and gives us an extra card draw whenever we draw a card beyond the first one in our draw step. This can also make our life gain cards doubly useful, and easily puts us over the top in life total. Bontu's Monument is a 3 mana artifact that makes our black creatures cost 1 generic less to cast. Whenever we cast a creature spell, each opponent loses 1 life, and then we gain 1 life. This does return us back to that little bit intense life gain mechanic, but this small bit of life can make the difference when we are doing math for Gollum. Cosmos Elixir is a 4-mana artifact. At the beginning of your end step, if your life total is greater than your starting life total, draw a card. If not, we gain 2 life. So a number of things to note with this. We can sequence this to go off before Gollum's ability, giving us the life gain before his ability resolves. This will likely just give us the card draw most of the time, but it might come in as a life gain in games where the heat is on us pretty bad and we need the bolster. Elixir of Immortality is a bit of a reset button. This 1-mana artifact can tap and pay 2 to gain us 5 life, then shuffle our library and graveyard together. We aren't on any mill, but having this cheap costed source of life can be useful if we need to get our numbers up for Gollum at the end step. Pristine Talisman is a basic mana rock for 3 mana, giving us 1 colorless and gaining us 1 life. Again, every little bit of life gain helps. Venser's Journal is another powerful artifact. For 5 mana, we no longer have a hand size limit. Also, at the beginning of our upkeep, we gain 1 life for each card in our hand. This is another excellent source of passive life gain, and it would be prudent to hold a few cards in hand. We do have some potent and relevant card draw in cards such as Well of Lost Dreams, which is a 4-mana artifact that whenever we gain life, we can pay X, where X is less than or equal to the amount of life we've gained, to draw that many cards. Converting life gain into card draw like this will help maintain the momentum. Whip of Erebos is 2 and 2 black for a legendary enchantment artifact. Gives our creatures lifelink, and we can pay 2 and 2 black to tap and return target creature from the graveyard to play. It gains haste and then is exiled at the beginning of the next end step. If it would leave play before then, it is also exiled. We can only activate this ability at sorcery speed. This is another means to give our creatures lifelink, and it has some reanimation on it to boot. Zuran Orb is a 0-drop artifact. We can sacrifice a land to gain 2 life. This is our Latch Stitch game ender. If we are about to enter our end step and we only need a few more life gain to wrap up the game, we could sacrifice however many lands we need to in order to get this past that threshold. Lastly, the Meat Hook Massacre is a board wipe and aristocrat all in one. For X and 2 black, creatures on the battlefield get -X and -X until the end of turn. Whenever a creature we control dies, each opponent loses 1 life. Whenever an opponent's creature dies, we gain 1 life, and this can be very helpful to clear the battlefield with an additional life gain bonus. Now, because we have a tremendous amount of life gain in this deck, I did include a few cards that utilize life as a resource. Vainwitch Coven costs 2 and a black for a 3/3 Vampire Warlock with Menace. Whenever we gain life, we can pay 1 black mana to return target creature from our graveyard to our hand. This is a nice piece of recursion and can play very well into our life gain frequency to keep our graveyards basically empty. Villis, Broker of Blood, is an 8/8 demon for 5 and 3 black. It has flying. You can pay 1 black and 2 life to give target creature -1/-1 until the end of turn. Lastly, whenever you lose life, you draw that many cards. Villis is an all-star in decks like this. Simply put, he converts life loss into card draw. In a deck that wants to gain a lot of life, opponents will be on the offensive, attacking into you as much as they can to mitigate your life gain. Villis lets you take a few hits and turn that into card draw. We can also trigger it ourselves using his activated ability a few times, which would draw you 2 cards each time. We also run a small combo with him and Tomb to get him into the graveyard, and then Reanimate to bring him out of the graveyard. This costs 2 mana to get Villis, an 8-drop, out. The drawback, if you'll consider it that, is Reanimate will burn us for 8 damage upon Villis entering the battlefield. But then Villis sees that damage dealt to us, and then because of his ability, we draw 8 cards. I'd say for 2 mana, that's a lot of value you really can't beat. Witch of the Moors is 3 and 2 black for a 4/4 human warlock with Death Touch. At the beginning of your end step, if you gained life this turn, each opponent sacrifices a creature, then you return up to 1 creature from your graveyard to your hand. This is a nice edict effect, potentially forcing opponents to sacrifice key creatures and then giving us more recursion. Lastly, we have Bolas's Citadel, which costs 3 and 3 black. You may look at the top card of your library at any time. You may play the top card of your library, paying life equal to the mana value instead of paying the mana cost. You can tap the Citadel, sacrifice 10 permanents, and then each opponent loses 10 life. This is another win con and a great combo piece. This, along with Aetherflux Reservoir and Sensei's Divining Top, let us literally play our entire deck and gain a tremendous amount of life in the process. The Aetherarch's Ways of R will gain us incrementally greater life with each spell we cast from the top of our library. The Dividing Top will let us work around cards like lands that we couldn't play with the Citadel, drawing us that card, replacing it with the top going to the top of the deck, and then we can just play the top from the top and continue the combo. Black Market Connections is an all-star in black decks with life to spare, as we can trade in our life total for treasure tokens, card draw, or even 3/2 creature tokens. Considering the amount of life gain our deck will be working with, we can easily pick all three just about every time. Lastly, and almost humorously here, we have both Phyrexian Arena and Call of the Ring to round out with some additional card draw. Phyrexian Arena will give us one additional card at each turn at the cost of 1 life on a 3-mana enchantment. Call of the Ring costs 1 and 1 black for an enchantment that gives us a Ring Temptation trigger at the beginning of our upkeep. Whenever we choose a Ring Bearer, we can pay 2 life to draw a card. As a quick aside, when you are first tempted by the ring, you get an emblem named the Ring. It gains the ability starting from the top of the list to the bottom. These abilities remain on the ring for the remainder of the game. If you control a creature, you must make it your ring bearer when you are tempted, but if you do not control a creature, you don't have to choose one. You can also opt to maintain the same creature to be your ring bearer. Because Gollum already has Skulk, the ring really wouldn't do a whole lot for him until he gets the second temptation ability onwards, though I would still let him be the ring bearer because, last I checked, it was his birthday after all. The game plan for this deck should be to get Gollum out as soon as possible, give him haste, perhaps with something like Lightning Greaves, and then get in a little sneaky's attack at each opponent. He has Skulk, making him entirely unblockable by larger creatures. We can use Filth and Urborg Tomb of Yawgmoth to make him unblockable by anything. What we're really trying to do is get each opponent live for his ability at the end step, because the secondary goal is get our life gain engines into place. Regardless of if Gollum has even attacked this turn, as long as at some point during the game he has connected with an opponent and dealt combat damage to them, his effect will still affect them. We can then go ham on the life gain, pad our life total, and burn our opponents. I think this is a really interesting strategy as it goes life gain without a whole lot of additional aggression. It will be important to gain as much life as we can each turn to maximize the output by Gollum and keep games on the shortest clock possible. But with that, we're going to wrap up this look at Gollum Obsessed Stalker. Are there any cards you recommend adding to this deck? Let me know in the comments section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. If so, likes and shares are always graciously welcome. I noticed that 95 of my current viewers are not yet subscribed. If you're part of that 95%, firstly, hello. I hope you'll consider hitting that subscribe button and ringing that bell to be a part of the notification squad. And as always, I'll catch all you hobbitses next videos.